But let me welcome everyone who's joined us this morning. Here we are on this last day of new faculty orientation. We have, I think, a really interesting session planned here. And then for those of you who are going to be interested, we have the financial session that's going to follow this too. I've even thought about looking in so I can learn all the mistakes I made over these years. But until then, some people who most decidedly did not make mistakes in their career are gathered here today. So Kiki and Keith, I'm going to let you introduce yourselves and then get this ball rolling.
Thank you, Dwayne. And Kiki and I are serving as a dynamic duo today. So good morning to everyone. I'm Keith Anderson. I'm the Interim Vice President for Research, Innovation, and Knowledge Enterprise at USF. And together with my co-moderator, Kiki Carusin, who is the Interim Vice President of USF World, we are delighted to welcome you to our first ever new faculty orientation research panel. Historically, we've done this as a group with a slideshow, and everybody kind of got 3 slides, and I got to run through them. So we're trying to be freshen things up a little bit this year, maybe make it more interactive, and go with this panel. Our goal today is to help you get off to a good start with your research at USF, and we'll be talking about some of the resources available to you for research, for partnerships, and for global engagement. We hope that what you hear today will help you take advantage of opportunities that arise during your career at USF.
Thanks, Keith. I'm Kiki Carusin. I'm also a faculty member here at USF, and it's a real pleasure to join you today, especially with our 4 distinguished faculty panelists who are going to share their own experience at the university with you. I want to make you aware that this session is going to be recorded, and it'll be made available not only to those who attend, but those who are not in attendance. And there are a number of links to resources from USF World, our global office, and the Office of Research and Innovation that we'll post in the chat, and that you also have access to on the new faculty orientation resource page online. So we're going to ask all of you who are faculty new to USF, if you would do us the favor of putting your name, your department or school, or college, and your campus location where you spend most of your time in the chat, if you would. We don't have time in this particular session for everyone to do an individual introduction, but by having that record in the chat, you may identify someone who's starting at USF in your department or college, or somebody who is doing work that is interesting to you. And one thing I forgot to add is when you put in your name and your department affiliation and your campus location, if you would just add 1 or 2 words about your research expertise or your interest. That'll be very helpful too, because our job here on the administrative side is to help you connect not only with each other here on campus, but also with colleagues far and wide. So that helps us as well. Our panel today includes 4 experienced and successful faculty researchers at different stages in their careers. They will introduce themselves in a moment and tell you a little bit about their particular research and their path toward success in research. And we also have with us on the panel today a number of staff experts from the Office of USF Research and Innovation who can answer specific questions you may have about navigating research at USF. So we have a wonderful group of experts here, and we'll be sharing our insights with you throughout the session. We encourage you to post questions in the chat. But we'll also have a dedicated question and answer period as well. So without further ado, let me turn it back over to Keith.
Thanks, Kiki. We had originally planned to meet with you all in person, and obviously we had to move to the virtual format. And in order for it to be useful, engaging, as Kiki said, we encourage you to ask questions and interact with the panel as much as possible. Let's start by let's move forward and introduce our panelists and have them introduce themselves to you and share a little bit about their research at USF. Why don't we start with Jim?
All right, thank you, Keith. I'm Jim Stock. I'm in the Muma College of Business. I'm a distinguished university professor and also director of the Monica Wooden Center for Supply Chain Management and Sustainability. I do most of my research in sustainability, environmental activities related to business and supply chain management.
Thank you, Jim. Patrianne, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Patrianne Smith, newly tenured professor, associate professor at USF. I focus on Black immigrants' literacies, looking at how they navigate their experiences with literacy in the US. I'm located in the College of Education, and I'm excited to be here this morning.
Thank you, Patrianne. Lisa, please take a moment to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Aranda. I go by Lisa. I'm a professor of sociology, and I'm a former chairperson and associate dean. I'm on professional development leave now, and I study immigration and emotional adaptation. And I have two active NSF projects, one on undocumented young adults, one on Puerto Rican post-disaster migrants, and we're preparing to submit today one on Venezuelan migration. So I'm a little bit under the gun with the deadline today, but it's nice to be here.
Thanks for being with us, Lisa. And Harry, why don't you introduce yourself to the group?
Hello, folks. Good morning. This is Hari Srikanth. I am in the physics department at USF. I've been here since 2000, just like some of you are sitting, you know, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I remember my own orientation 20 years back. So I'm a distinguished university professor as of last year. So you can see that I, went through the blocks and the rungs, and hopefully we'll share some of our experiences, what worked, what didn't today. My research areas are broadly defined multifunctional materials. So especially in magnetism, that's my focus. We look at nanoscale magnetism. We also look at multi-layers and heterostructures and look at various kinds of electromagnetic properties. My lab is called the Functional Materials Lab, and over the years, a lot of students and postdocs have gone through our system in my group. So in terms of funding, I can share certainly my experiences. Right now, my program is mainly funded by the Department of Energy, Basic Energy Sciences. I do see some from the natural sciences in the chat introduce themselves, so I'd be more than happy to talk to you and share more with you. If not during this venue, you can always send me an email, and I'll be happy to share my experience with you.
Thanks, everyone. We'd like to begin with an overview of the resources available in USF Research and Innovation and in USF World, so that you will have an idea of what offices or individuals will be key to your research success. We have created a PowerPoint brochure and research and innovation resources. That link is in the chat and also on our research homepage. It will give you an excellent overview of research at USF with links and videos that will help guide you on your way to at USF. For example, in research and innovation, who and what offices should be your go-tos for funding sources, proposal development, award management, and compliance and regulatory affairs. I'd like to direct you first and foremost to the Faculty One-Stop page on the research website. The link is in the chat, and there's also a link on the research homepage. On this page, you will find links to help you search for funding, develop your proposals, including the general information blurb that contains information you will need for each proposal, and to submit your proposals. You'll also find links for compliance information, along with links for important technical and administrative processes, links to our tech transfer office for patents, licensing, and startup, and to business incubation services. And finally, on that one-stop shopping page, you will find helpful links for training as you move forward. I'd like to turn it over now to Kiki so she can talk to you about resources found in USF World.
Sure, thank you, Keith. I'll also add, I was just looking in the chat, I see a number of faculty who are based out of Sarasota. So what you'll find, I was a new faculty member once too here at USF, and you'll find that there are a number of resources available either in your department. So you might have a research administrator who helps you at the department level, and maybe some of our faculty will talk about kind of their go-to people in terms of support, or at the college or school level, Or if you're on the Sarasota campus, you have a wonderful resource, Sandy Justice, who will be your first point of contact on the Sarasota campus. So we can add those Tampa, Sarasota and St. Pete resources in the chat as well. But there are multiple layers of support for you, including USF World, which is our global office. And within USF World, the jewel in our crown is the Fulbright program. And we have a dedicated faculty advisor who will help those of you who are interested in a Fulbright experience navigate that process, as it's quite different in terms of the proposal and the content of the proposal and the orientation of the proposal than a traditional grant would be. And then we also help with identifying funding for international mobility. And so there are a number of organizations that may be funded by other governments, like the German government has a very good and robust funding program, especially for junior scholars and postdocs and graduate students. But also we've had some success with the Marie Curie grants, which allow for you to travel overseas to work with a partner or to bring your partner here. We have 2 Fulbrighters on the panel, so I'm sure they'll speak about that. And you might also be interested in hosting a Fulbright scholar. So we can also help you with that, either at the postdoc level or a colleague, a more senior colleague. I'll just share with you, I'm going to see if I can do this real quick. Let me see if I can share my screen very, very quickly with you. I'm just going to share the main page of the USF World website, and you'll see here at the top, we have a section that's just for faculty. And there's a drop-down menu there. So hopefully we've organized our resources for you so it's easy to find. If you click on this Global Discovery Hub link, which I'm going to do in a different way for you, I'm going to show you something fun that I did for Jim. And let's see if I can pull it up. And if I can't do it quickly, I won't do it at all. But I mapped Jim's global footprint, and we'll see if we can, here we go. I'm feeling very proud of myself mastering this Teams thing. So this is the Global Discovery Hub, and you can look here at our partnerships. You can look at faculty profiles. You can look at student mobility inbound and outbound. We're adding alumni, and you can look at a summary of global activities. And every faculty member has a profile. And so I just simply typed in James Stock. And so you can see right here is Jim's global footprint as we know it. We're not perfect. We don't capture every activity, but we do capture, you can see here, a variety of types of activities. So as a new faculty member, once you're in the HR system, you'll have a portfolio here, a profile. Will help you populate it, and it's also a great way, and I'm going to stop sharing now. It's a wonderful way to meet other people on campus who may have interests similar to yours. My job is to track global activities. So the Global Discovery Hub does capture activities that have a global aspect to them. So you won't find every publication of every faculty member, but you may find some natural collaborators or folks you might want to seek out who've done something that you are interested in. And it's an easy way for you to identify those folks. And we're more than happy to help as well. So that's, please reach out to USF World. We're here to help you be a success at USF, research, teaching, whatever your partnerships, whatever you want to do internationally, we're here to support you and strategize with you. So, Keith, I think you're going to start off with, I'm going to stop talking now, and we're going to start hearing from our panelists. So please address questions if you do in the chat, and we can always follow up with you later if they're unique to your particular situation.
Thanks. You know, there's a wealth, as you can probably imagine, there's a wealth of people and places that are available to you from central offices that to benefit your research as you do it here at USF. I think some of the other folks that I would want to mention is the unit research administrators that are out in the colleges and the departments. Those are usually the first folks and the ones that are working most closely with the faculty. I know there are there are difference in levels of offices or organizations within the colleges. Some colleges have bigger research office and maybe more than one or two unit research administrators. Some of those smaller departments probably have maybe one, but I think most do have the unit research administrator, and I would certainly encourage you to find that person in your department or your college and reach out to that person as well. The other folks that come to mind in the colleges and that really and departments that really ring to me would be your department chairs, your associate deans of research for each college. I meet pretty much weekly with that group, and it's a great opportunity from a central part for us to send information back to the colleges through the ADRs, and also for them to bring information to the forefront for the other all the ADRs to consider and maybe make changes on campus. The other one that comes to my mind would be the dean of your college. That's obviously a very important person. I don't know. I'd like to open it up to the panel if there's other folks in your journey at USF that you thought was a go-to person that maybe we haven't mentioned. Would anybody like to speak on that?
Well, I can mention when I came here in 1989, which is probably longer ago than most of you. This was my fourth university, so I'd been to 3 other universities before coming here. And one of the things which I always had on the forefront is, can I do the things I want to do research-wise without hindrance? And I have to say at USF that has been the case. And as Keith mentioned, certainly have deans, you have these associate deans for research. There may be individual people on your faculty that have a research position in terms of administrators. But then you also have mentors, full professors, distinguished university professors, chaired, endowed people who have successfully mastered research over a number of years. And one of the things I do not find here is clairvoyancy. You have to ask. People will sometimes seek you out to help you, but you need to be proactive. Identify those people in your department or school, within the administration, both at the college level and university level, and ask them for help. They're like research librarians in many respects, where if I can't find something, if I call the research librarian over in our library, they know exactly where to tell me to go, which saves a lot of time. I think Harry pushed in some early conversations that print out that go-to list, have it taped to your computer or next to it, so you know where those people are located. And so as you traverse USF, one of the things which I think we're unique about is we have more speed bumps than I think any university in Florida. And some of the speed bumps are so large my entire car fits on top of them. But there are no speed bumps here for research, because research has been important, is important, will continue to be important, and particularly with the focus that USF has on AAU membership. A lot of that is research-based. We do lots of things in the college. I can comment more specifically on business because that's where I'm located. But in our different schools, we adjust teaching schedules. We adjust teaching loads to maximize the ability of faculty to utilize the one resource which is more important than salary or teaching load or office that you have, and that's time. You need time to do research, particularly if you want to do high quality research in the top journals. And so sometimes you have to say no, but typically you'll be protected as a new faculty member. And that's at all levels, instructor, all the way up through associate professor. Those of us who are full professors, we don't get any breaks. We're on all the committees and so forth, which is fine. There's summer research grants that most of the colleges offer. In business, we have some very good ones, and that's been expanding. Most of that money comes from outside sources. We have a behavioral lab that we can use, because even I, in the supply chain area, do behavioral research with business executives. And then there's opportunities for networking across colleges within USF. and of course overseas as well as USF World. I was not aware of that global map, so I learned something new today.
Jim, we always use you as our poster child for global.
Well, I've been to 46
ambassador.
different countries, and I don't count going through an airport to go to someplace else as being visiting. But to just give you one simple example, I do a lot of international travel working with universities around the world, mostly in Scandinavian countries, Italy and South Africa. I looked at that map and said, I can remember every mile I sat in an airline seat and coach for many of those trips. But several years ago, USF allowed us to fly business class if we were in a 9-hour segment or longer. And it's nice to get someplace to do research or other things and be perky as opposed to being dead from the neck down, having been in a coach seat for so long. So there's little things like that. We'll talk a little bit more later on Fulbright, because that's a crown jewel at USF. We do extremely well because there's great people that support that. But again, I think the issue is you can work any 60 hours a week you want here, and the resources are available for you. And so you determine how much you do. The only recommendation I have from a personal standpoint is don't sacrifice your family on the altar of professional success. I've never done that, and I've still been successful. And I think you're more successful if you have a quality family life as well.
Thanks,
so
Jim.
I'll stop.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Is there anybody else on the panel that would like to mention maybe institutional resources that contributed to your success or challenges you might have faced as you've built your research career at USF? Go ahead, Lisa.
Sorry, it takes a little bit to unmute. I've found some resources that have been of great utility to me. The Office of Research and Innovation, I believe, has a grant program where they offer, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but conference grants and proposal enhancement grants. And I've been able to leverage both of those to not just get greater opportunities, but to network with other people in the country that ended up writing letters for promotion and tenure. For example, I got a conference grant, so I organized a conference. I circulated through the migration sociological networks around the country. I got some heavy hitters to come, so that opportunity allowed me to get to know them better. And it's not that we formed these, close relationships. It was networking. And down the line, when they were asked, would you evaluate this candidate's promotion portfolio, they were more likely to know who I was and to maybe agree. I also got the proposal enhancement grant, which I was able to utilize to do a pilot study, and I leveraged that data to get a larger $400,000 NSF grant. So these pockets of seed money really are helpful if you know how to leverage them the right ways to get larger pots of money to do the research you want to do. So that's been a huge help to me, I have to say.
Go ahead, Howard.
Yeah, I'll be very brief, and then Patricia can maybe add something. I just want to emphasize that as far as resources go, your one-stop shop is the website of ORI as well as the USF World. They have a lot of information there, and I would like to emphasize, and Jim pointed this out, the first thing you do is print out the facts sheet. This is something that contains all the information about the overheads, the fringe rates, and it will help you negotiate and put together the budgets. And also, one of the first things as a new faculty member is that you might be overwhelmed with putting together a budget when writing a grant. USF is there to help you. In fact, Keith mentioned unit research administrators, departments. Most of the departments, I know that in physics, we have a dedicated staff member in the department that takes care of managing and helping with grants. So they are your best resource because they already have the numbers for your department, and I can tell you that in physics, our Sharon, what she has done is she has put together a template, an Excel template, where all the numbers are already there. So you just have to put together your salary, your student salary, and then even that you don't need to do it. You just need to send an email to this person who assists you saying that I want to hire a postdoc, 2 students on this grant and pay myself a summer salary. Can you create the budget for me? And they will do that. So please focus on the technical work, your technical part of your proposal. Leave the rest for your staff members and administrators to help you. We're all there. USF is there to help you succeed. Keep that in mind. So we want you to be successful. And that's the reason why USF has been one of the fastest growing universities. If you look at all the stats, you will see that USF is one of the fastest, in fact, the fastest growing for the past few years in the country. And there's a reason for that. And that's because we have excellent faculty members like yourself. And then we have the resources and the facilities and the assistance needed to get things done quickly and to get over all these hurdles. So again, as I said, focus on your writing your proposal on of course, there are 3 words that you will keep hearing all the time, and I'll repeat this later on, and that is research, teaching, and service. So most of the evaluation committees in your departments are going to look for every year there's an annual evaluation, and they look for your progress, your achievements in research, teaching, and service. All 3 are important, but of course, we expect, being a major Research One university, we expect you to excel in research, and that's something that you will be focusing a lot of time on, setting up your own individual program, developing interactions, interdisciplinary research. All these things are important. We'll get to that later on, but I just wanted to say that there are resources out there. So if you need any help, I think you can reach out to any of the administrators or faculty here. We'll be happy to help you.
Thank you. Patrianne, did you want to add anything?
I think I would say everything they said, but definitely also the Foundations Office. I think I would highlight that is a very important resource, because if you're trying to get into places like the Spencer Foundation, the WTG Foundation, I think those folks were really, really helpful in terms of not only identifying outlets, but also in terms of reading proposals and helping faculty to navigate the foundation's submission process, which tends to be a little different sometimes from the actual federal. So I would definitely say, to look at that area specifically, because you may not be able to start off with a huge federal grant as soon as you begin the process, but foundations tend to be a little smaller in terms of the monies that they're able to give, and that can be a good place to start off.
Great, thank you. I did want to point the program that Lisa mentioned about the seed funding. That is through our internal awards program, and it is administered and housed through research and innovation. But the research council is staffed through our faculty senate group, and those are faculty members, your fellow faculty members who review the proposals and make the decisions on those awards. So, Kiki, I think we're ready to move on to the next question.
Wonderful. And I'll just add, as a member of the College of Arts and Sciences, every college is different, but the colleges also run their own internal awards depending on funding. So you may be able to seek funding from your college as well as from the Office of Research and Innovation more centrally. So you need to just watch your email, because those announcements come out, and you'll know the funding mechanisms that are available through the college as well. So our second question is, for our panelists, what advice do you have for faculty looking to grow research portfolios and extend the reach of their research? For example, things that our new faculty to USF might find helpful on their journey from assistant to associate to full to distinguished university professor, wherever you'd like to share part of your journey and what kind of advice do you have for growing your research? Patrianne, do we want to start? I'm sorry, and we'll start Harry. Sorry. I'm not, I need to follow the script,
Yeah,
Bruce, and Harry's going to take the lead there.
There's no reason to stick to it. Would Patria like to go first and then?
No, Harry, you can,
Okay.
and we'll
So
then hand off to Patria.
let me go ahead and I'm going to repeat the mantras. I already mentioned them: research, teaching, and service. So if you are a new faculty member, you may be joining USF and this is the first time you have taken on this role. You may have been a postdoc or a graduate student with no experience or limited experience when it comes to managing research or writing proposals. So this will be a learning experience for you. The first thing you should do is, again, we're a friendly university. Our departments, we're very collegial. That's the key word here. We're a very collegial university, and departments, there are faculty that have gone through this. So that's who you go to first. You look for your mentors within your department that have already been successful in creating programs, research programs that over the years, grew in visibility. They've already been successful in getting extramural funding. It's very important to learn the art. All of you would have great ideas, I'm sure. That's why you're here. USF is happy to, get the cream of the crop in terms of hiring US faculty. So we know you're good in your fields, but you may have to. The first year could be a little overwhelming because you're expected to, as I said, develop your research program. Teach classes to large sections or small sections of students, be an educator, start mentoring graduate students over the first couple of years or 3 years. And then finally, you will be assigned duties by your department head, your chair in terms of serving on committees, which is service, right? Generally, we are quite friendly there and make sure that the first year, second year faculty members are not swamped with too many departmental tasks. And this is an unwritten code. Most of the chairs are very friendly about this and making sure that they give you a lot more time for building your program. So there's no magic recipe as far as how do I get tenure, but in most cases, they expect you to get extramural funding, federal funding. I can speak on behalf of the natural sciences and engineering, which is something that I'm really, it's something that is known to me. There are agencies out there, like, as you know, like the National Science Foundation, which is one of the biggest source for single investigator individual grants, as well as group grants. I mentioned the Department of Energy and also DoD, Department of Defense, has a lot of programs, and they fund fundamental research too. Army Research Office, Air Force, Navy. So you have a lot of resources, and each agency has a different way. For example, NSF is, really, you don't need any prior contacts, whereas the other agencies, it is good to have talk to the program managers, maybe write a short white paper on your research idea and run it by them, and they would be able to give you feedback on which it fits. In terms of what areas, I would suggest, from my personal opinion, is there are these grand challenges, at least in the sciences and engineering and natural sciences, that have been identified by the National Academy of Sciences, for example, by the NRC, the National Research Council. And these are publications that are available. They do this once in 10 years and say that these are the challenges that we have in the sciences. So if you can tap your research, if you can identify and make a connection to one of the grand challenges, this would be appealing to the program managers right away, because they know that it's going to fit into one of the national requirements, energy being one of them, right? We all need to improve the energy efficiency. So if you have any material that you think could be useful for improving the energy efficiency, that's where you go, right? To tap into that. In terms of your journey, every year, please make sure that you pay attention to the annual evaluation, that your peer committee in the department and your department chair would actually sit and talk to you and go over what it is that is going well in your case and perhaps something that you need to improve. This is important because after 3 years, you get the chance of going through the midterm tenure review. And that is a good point for where you will know that you're on track or there are things that need to be drastically improved. So please engage with mentors within your department. Mentoring program is very important. Most of the departments have that. You will be assigned a mentor, a senior faculty member. So please make it a point to meet with them. And if you have any frustrations, make sure that you bring it to the attention of your department chair. Again, they're there to help you and to guide you. And it's important that you tell them well in advance what is impeding your progress. Okay. If you do all these things, again, as I said, there's no magic recipe. There are so many of you in different disciplines, ranging from the humanities, sciences, and engineering. In general, they want your research to be, the scholarly publications should be out there in peer-reviewed journals in your field of research. You are expected to get some level of extramural funding. Depending on your departments, it could vary what the expectations are, and your chair will be able to advise you typically what is a successful path towards tenure. If you're a senior faculty member, that you've already been through this drill at another major university, so you've been through that drill. But if you're going towards full professorship or even the highest position that we have in Florida, which is the Distinguished University Professor, what we expect is, beyond the funding and mentoring students, international visibility is expected. So in that case, we want you to be out there, to be invited by major professional conferences, to run sessions for them, to run programs for them. We expect these senior people to be on editorial boards of your journals in your field, to serve as editors or associate editors in your field, to serve as reviewers of grant proposals, routinely invited for that. And most importantly, to be able to have international visibility. As Kiki mentioned, there are lots of programs out there, and over the journey, you would make connections and tap into some of these programs like the Fulbright. I personally have a Fulbright award too, like Jim, and it's a great experience. I would advise you not to try that in your first year. I think the first couple of years, you focus on developing your individual program here at USF. And then, of course, you can branch out and expand your profile at a global level. So these are the words that I wanted to share with you.
Patrian, you want to follow up? Oh, sorry, Harry has more thoughts.
No, I'm just over to you, Patrian.
Oh, thank you, Harry. Really great advice. I think that I would probably just extend what Harry has said to just add a few things. The first one, I would say, guard your time. I have found that time, and as someone mentioned this earlier, your time is your greatest resource. And to the degree that you're able to manage it, you're able to get so much done. How do you do that? Many people might ask. I tend to schedule my writing time into my calendar, block it off so that it's a meeting with me and my writing, and so that I don't end up moving away from that and accommodating so many other things that tend to happen. Of course, if you have a departmental meeting that you need to attend, that's something you want to be able to keep. But apart from that, I would say guard your time, because it has been, for me as a newly tenured professor, the most important part of getting through this tenure journey successfully. Another thing I think I would mention is mentorship. The whole idea of mentorship tends to be that we look towards one person sometimes for a lot of our guidance, but I would say that I've seen multiple levels of mentorship become so important. So for example, having somebody in the department, in the program, in the college, at the university, having these different levels of mentorship can really, really be helpful, because folks can tell you about what's actually happening in different spaces to give you an idea of what does it look like to be able to perform in a way that meets the guidelines of the university, of the college, of the program, etc. I also find it very useful to have mentors from the profession, folks who are just part of my field, who are not actually at the university, but who prepare me for sort of thinking about what the letter will be that individuals write about when they do these tenure letters or these external review letters later on. And I think this is the time when you can begin to do that, begin to establish these networks with individuals who then become people that can potentially write these letters. I've also found it useful not to have these folks write with me, because I'm thinking of them as potential reviewers. Because in fields where it's very small and there are not so many people, it can be a place where it's very hard to find a really great reviewer for your tenure, because you've now connected with so many folks and you've been writing with them, or you've been too close to them, so they're unable to review. So just something to keep in mind. I would say that goal setting for a third idea would be goal setting, an annual goal setting agenda that really is unique to you and your research agenda. I have found that to be phenomenal in terms of following through on what I want to do in a particular year. So specifying goals based on research, teaching and service, as Harry said, breaking that up every semester and saying, okay, here's what I'm going to do this semester based on my annual goal, and then breaking that up into the weekly goals in terms of what exactly am I going to write this week, and revisiting that every Friday or every weekend, as the case may be. That I think is really, really helpful in terms of helping us see how far we along the process and getting through towards the goals that have been set. The department chair is probably another big one for me, because cultivating a relationship with the department chair is something that a lot of new faculties can sometimes overlook. But the department chair is someone who can become an advocate, someone who can become, a really great form of support. And I think that going beyond just having an annual review meeting with the department chair and being able to just informally talk with the department chair about where you're wanting to go, what you're wanting to do, is something that can really help, keep track of what's happening with your process. And then just a few more pieces here. I think keeping the dean of your college abreast of the successes that you have, major successes, not every success, because sometimes deans are unaware of what's happening with faculty. And it's sometimes very important to say, okay, if there's a really major success, finding a way to communicate that to the dean, who is going to be part of the tenure process, is very, very important. And also, I think if you're coming from another university, trying to be sure that expectations across universities are aligned, or if they're not aligned, figuring out what the differences are. So I have a lot more things that I can say, but I'm pretty sure there are other folks who are, able to share as well. So I'll pass it on right now.
Let me add one thing to Patreon. She made some excellent points. Certainly time is your most valuable resource. But in terms of mentoring, you can be proactive. You don't have to wait. For example, in our school, we have a 3-year pre-tenure promotion, which is the toughest, I think, even more so than the 6-year. But you can go to your department head or school director in advance and say, I'm thinking of publishing here. What do you think about that? Or this is a topic I want to investigate. Is that something I should be looking at, or should I look at something other than that particular topic? And so, get that, be proactive. Don't just wait till there's due end dates for certain things, such as the 3-year review or whatever, annual review. You can do that 24/7, 365. Encourage you to do that. And this international thing, I think Kiki put a little blurb in the chat. The university is always doing some innovative things. I think they've had 2 cycles of this international networking competition for funding, where they want you to interface with the university overseas somewhere and involve a graduate student or a student from USF in that. And I applied and received an award the first year and went to colleagues in Stellenbosch, South Africa. Took my graduate assistant, first time he'd ever been to South Africa. And it was an amazing experience for him, which longer term can have some positive impacts for you as a faculty member, because you'll be networking with your grad students, whether they're master's or PhD, into the future as they assume academic careers. And so you can nurture those relationships while you're here. And also it helps dissipate the workload from one individual to multiple people.
If I can jump in. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, Lisa, you haven't had a chance. I'll add afterwards.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for people who are doing research that has policy implications, one of the biggest challenges is how do you get your research in front of the right people, the people who are making decisions that affect the populations you might be studying. And I found that reaching out to the University Communications and Marketing Office helps, but usually you want to go through your college. So your college should have a marketing person who would liaise and maybe connect you with other folks at the university level. And in my case, it's helped me, for example, locate, who's the op-ed editor of this particular outlet and make a connection. So I've been able to sort of translate my research findings into more pieces for the public to consume. And I find that it increases the chances of it getting in front of policymakers. So through publicizing the research, I've been able to, for example, meet with one of our senators recently to sort of describe our research findings and how at the state level they can help that population. So I would say work with your college marketing person. Also, does your college, I know the university does, but does your college have some sort of way of publicizing your research? And I know in the College of Arts and Sciences, they publish a quarterly digital publication, which is called The Hub. And so you can submit your research for publication there. In my case, I did that, and I was able to report that in my annual report to the funding officer, and they really liked that. They really liked that a project they invested in was given publicity, because then it can be picked up at the university level. They might write a story about your research, and again, it just sort of escalates or elevates it and puts it in the right hands. And then one more thing I'd mention, this isn't a university thing, but it's a group that I'm involved in. I'm the co-leader of the Florida chapter of the Scholars Strategy Network, and it's an organization that brings together academics with policymakers and journalists. And the idea is, how do you get meaningful research out there to the right people making decisions? And so if anyone's interested in that, we teach you how to write a policy report. We provide media training. So in case somebody from the media contacts the university and wants you to speak about your research, I mean, there's so many things we don't think about. We're academics. We don't think about what to do when you're speaking on TV. And so they kind of tell you the do's and don'ts. So I'll put the link to the organization in the chat. But it's just a way of not just reaching other audiences, but also one thing I found is the idea of marketing your research. They don't teach you this in graduate school, but that's really important. And I don't know about you all, but I'm not one who likes to self-promote. Like, it really, I've taught myself to force myself to drop these things because that's, you're what you produce sometimes. And so we have to get our work out there so people will listen to it. So that's all I have to add in terms of expanding the reach of one's research.
And Lisa, let me here, I'll come to you right here. Let me add one thing. USF R&I has a research communications department with Vicki Satry, and she does a great job of getting getting stories out about the research that our faculty are doing. So I encourage you to reach out to Vicki and discuss that stuff. Harry, you had one final comment before we move on to the next question?
Yeah, just very quick comments on a couple of things. One of them, of course, we keep coming back to this, like, extramural funding, how to write winning proposals. Talk to your colleagues, as I said, who have been successful. But the best way to write a good proposal is to read some good proposals. And one of the best ways to do that is to offer your services to be a reviewer for agencies like the National Science Foundation, NIH, and other agencies. Program managers are very willing and helpful in terms of giving you an opportunity to be part of a panel. And that's the best way to learn how some proposals from your peers from other institutions are reviewed and which ones make it to the top. That's the best way to learn. OK, the second point I want to make is that, again, for some programs, especially if you are doing experimental research, I did see somebody in chemistry and biology on this chat. So if you have a lab and if you make materials, for example, and you need to look at them using various major analytical tools that may not be available to you in your lab, there are lots of facilities within the university. We are a major research university. Almost all analytical tools, whether they're electron microscopes, whether they're various kinds of systems. There's a nano center that is run by the College of Engineering, which is university-wide. You will find everything within the university for your research. And this is from my experience. I never really had to, well, I have a lot of collaborators, but I never really had to go outside USF to access something that I did not particularly have. So facilities are available, and that's one of the infrastructure is one of the major investment that USF has been making. They should do more, but they're on the right track in terms of improving the major infrastructure facilities.
Thank you, Harry.
I'm going to jump in just for a second, and then Patrian, I'll share with you what Lisa said is so important about knowing how to articulate the benefit, the real world benefit of your research. And it's true, none of us gets trained on that in graduate school, especially, and that can be especially tricky for some folks who are in highly technical fields, making that leap from something that's understood by a subset of researchers in a particular field to how would I explain this to my next door neighbor? And I think anything that we can do collectively to help each other articulate the benefits of what a research university does that improves the lives of people is beneficial. So thank you for sharing that. And I just stuck in the chat. I've known Vicki forever. She does a fantastic job of promoting the amazing things that researchers are doing, faculty are doing instructors are doing across the university. And we often will co-promote. So if we know about something, we'll also promote it on the USF World website. We also have a communications team. And we have a central university communications and marketing team, but we can only do what we know about. So if we don't know the amazing things that you're doing, and that's the best kept secret, that's the worst for us. So please do cultivate your inner self-promoter a little bit, and don't be afraid to share your achievements, because we're all, we are all stretched with our responsibilities. So the more that you can help us to amplify what you're doing, we will be more than happy to do that.
Great. Thank you, Kiki.
Sorry,
Thanks,
Patrian. I'm sorry, did you have something to add?
Yeah, just very quickly, and I think Vicki has just put it in the chat. Social media is now one of the biggest ways of promoting our research as faculty, and I think that with Vicki's help, we definitely have a great resource here that new faculty can tap into. I will say that from my own from my own experience, it's very difficult sometimes to promote these very rigorous sorts of ideas and complex ideas on Twitter, for example. So definitely reach out to Vicki. Vicki, thank you for posting this, because I think it really helps for folks who are in the public domain to be able to have access to what you do.
Great, thank you. Let's move on to our next question, and that is, how have partnerships, local, national, or global, advanced your research? And maybe we could start with Jim, and maybe you could talk about your Fulbright experience a little bit.
Yeah, I'll mention a couple of examples. The first one is the Fulbright. The second one will be hosting visiting scholars or postdocs. I was fortunate to get Fulbright on a split over 2-year period in Finland, in Helsinki. And that was a great experience. Even learned a few Finnish words while I was there, and Finnish jokes as well. Those are easier than the words. But we have a great group here at USF, which is why USF has finished so high. I think for 2 years they've been #1 in the country, but particularly we've been in the top 5 almost every year in the past 5 years, because there are dedicated people. Kiki mentioned a full-time person, that's Darlene DeMarie, who works with faculty to assist them to put in applications and also to identify locations where they're more likely to get a Fulbright. And of course, we have a number of ex-Fulbrighters on campus. And we provide input into the process by reading the different applications people put together, because that, if you've been successful, obviously you've done something right. And if you're trying for the very first time, I didn't get a Fulbright my first time I applied, but I learned some things from it and got better at applying. And so one of the benefits of Fulbrights is not only the cultural benefits, but also you identify colleagues that you can continue to work with for long periods of time. And so I continue to do that with the people at the Hanken School of Economics in Helsinki, where I was. And we have joint research that goes on. I've taught a class virtually at their school this last year, and that's going to continue. And so if you are interested, as Hari mentioned, it's probably not something you want to do the first few years of your career, but certainly senior assistant and associate level, that's a great experience because it's a win-win for everybody. Well, maybe a win-win-win. Your students benefit from the examples and illustrations that you can bring into the classroom. The visiting scholars, as I've moved up the, I guess, the university hierarchy in terms of position, I seem to get at least 2 or 3 requests every year for a visiting scholar to come work in my research group or with the center or with me personally. Our department now school can only really handle 1 person per year. And I've sort of dominated that because I've had 4 visiting scholars come in, 1 from Turkey, 1 from Italy, Brazil, and China. And all of those resulted in joint publications. All of those, 2 of those resulted in exchanges to their university to lecture in their classrooms or at a conference. And so again, this is again a beautiful way of networking, not only with domestic faculty and staff people, but to network with international people who have, it's sort of like that chart where you look at the different ways something's manufactured. They have all these different places you can go, and every person you deal with has their own network. Many people I don't know, particularly in some foreign country somewhere, and they can provide an introduction to you. As an illustration, when I applied for my Fulbright to Finland, which apparently I found out in hindsight was very difficult to get any kind of Fulbright in Finland because it's a very popular location. And this was for a distinguished professor position, which there's only 40 some worldwide. But interestingly, Hanken has 5 of them, which is very interesting. That's another story. But the woman who was head of the area where I was applying for this Fulbright had been a doctoral student in a doctoral symposium in Turku, Finland, that I had presented at 10 years earlier, and got to know her there and never had any correspondence with her since then. But she remembered that. She was very impressed with the conference and said, yeah, we'd really like to work with you. So that was probably the reason I got that Fulbright. She was the local person who really pushed it with the Fulbright Commission in Finland. And you never know where those network relationships will take you. You can't have too many people on your network, but you have to, like a farmer has to water periodically and fertilize. So you don't forget these people after a while. You keep in touch with them, and you'll have some great opportunities internationally. And I've got a 3-year study, which is now just completed, that is looking at sustainability and supply chain management in 15 different countries. And so I've got 14 faculty members in various countries around the world that are participating in that. Because they don't have to, the Chinese professor doesn't have to translate it into English. She can do it in Mandarin. Brazilian can do it in Portuguese. I don't know Portuguese. And so all those things are very, very helpful. And you never really know. Someday I'll get a call out of the blue. Somebody in Mexico City says, Professor Stock, could you present at our meeting? I said, how do you find out about me? Well, I had such and such talk about you, and you'll be a great fit. Okay, if I can fit it in my schedule. I love traveling internationally, particularly if it's invited. They usually pay business class, so it's more comfortable. But partnerships can be local, national, or global. Look across the university. There's people in other departments. I do behavioral work, even though I'm more of a supply chain management person. But if you're in a supply chain, you deal with people. And so I'm going to be using our behavioral lab. It's in the College of Business. I'm going to be networking with people in psychology and sociology because they have more experience in individual and group kinds of activities. And so there's lots of folks, again, they're not clairvoyant. You have to do some of the initial contact, particularly if you're new. And I really encourage you to do that. Again, if you wish, use me as a resource if you have questions. When I go overseas, I tell people, send me an email. I use the FedEx approach. I respond within 24 hours to any email I get with information. Now, I'm not like FedEx, which says, well, we don't have an answer for you yet, but we'll get back. I'll usually have some type of answer or a partial answer for you. So please contact me. You can look me up in the faculty directory.
May I just say that in the interest of time, we only have like 10 more minutes. Perhaps this is a time to handle questions from the viewers, in case there were any.
We're going to 11:30, right?
11:15.
11:15.
Oh, 11:15, Dwayne.
Right.
And I know you want to have a couple of minutes at the end. We do have a question in the chat. Harry, maybe you're suited to answer this one. When is a good time to start your lab, a lab? Should I wait for my first grant?
No, you don't wait for your first grant. You have to, at USF, we want you to get started as soon as possible in terms of
your startup funds.
Building your research fund. And you would probably have startup funds just for that purpose, to make sure to get you going. Research grants, let's face it, it may take time. People may get lucky. There's an element of luck involved here. We all know this. Some of the best written proposals don't get funded the first time, and some of the proposals, from my own experience, I put together a proposal within a week. I didn't really think very much about it, but it got funded, right? So there's an element of luck. It depends on the panel. It depends on the review committee that's looking at it. So I would not wait for you to wait for the first grant before you start your work. Your scholarly activity should proceed just as it was. In fact, here's a tip. Many of you are postdocs that are moving in. You have unfinished work in your previous university. Please go ahead and write and make sure that your USF affiliation is listed jointly. You can work out a deal with your former employer saying that now that you're doing that part of the work from USF, don't lose credit for it, because it's important when your department committee looks at it, they know that you're USF, you're finishing up some work that you were from the previous university, but you are affiliated with USF. Joint affiliation is okay, but these are little things to make sure that your evaluation committees know that you are proceeding with your scholarly productivity. And even though the research itself may take time to kick in, it is important for you to maintain your publications, maintain your scholarly visibility, going to conferences, and so on and so forth.
Do our participants want to add some questions in the chat, or we can use the raise your hand function if there are those of you who have questions that we haven't addressed? I'll simply add, while we wait to see if some hands go up or questions pop up in the chat, that the Fulbright process is often no different than the traditional NSF, NIH, energy process, in that faculty often apply more than once. And so I would, if you happen to be involved in a process like that and you're not successful the first time around, like we say with all research grants, try again, because you will be successful. We have had faculty who have gone 3 or 4 rounds because they only want to go to Australia, and there's only one from the entire nation who's selected, and eventually we get there. So as Patrianne said, the goal setting, what is it that you want to accomplish, and then continuing to persevere. So questions, hands, questions in the chat. We're all so knowledgeable. We've answered everything. Hi, Pritish.
British.
Hey, thank you.
I know
Thanks.
Dwayne has comments, or you have comments that
Yeah,
you want to
well,
add.
I just wanted to thank the panel, and I wanted to thank Kiki, you and Keith. I mean, this is really truly amazing. I wish it was in person, where you could see the body language of the audience. But I'm telling you, I was sitting there in awe. You've covered so much ground. And as a department chair, Harry knows me really well because I was department chair of physics for 12 years and we worked a lot together. I think all of the important points that I could think of have really been covered. And I hope people have been listening because it's going to be incredibly useful. We try to impart this over time. And I think, Jim, you made a good point that nobody's clairvoyant. So you have to reach out and get that help. And as a department chair, what I found quite often was that new faculty members sometimes felt intimidated about reaching out to the chair. And so some chairs make themselves more available than others. But I think you'll find uniformly, independent of department or college, that if you do reach out to the chair, your interest is their interest. They're going to be successful if you're going to be successful. And I think USF is very proud to have you all as faculty. And I'm truly proud to be a USF faculty when I listen to colleagues as distinguished as those on this panel. So thank you very much for taking the time. I know we made this request of you with very short notice. So thank you. Thank you for taking the time.
And please know that we are here as a resource.
Well, I'm going to add my thanks as well to the panel. This was really informative, and I can absolutely assure you, I didn't get anything like this when I was a junior faculty member. So, well, in retrospect, I'm jealous. But no, I do appreciate very much the time that you have been able to spend with us. I would just add one thing to what everyone has said for especially new faculty kind of just walking in the door. And I'm saying this from the perspective of the former chair of the Department of Criminology, and have also been at several universities over my career. But more importantly, I also facilitate the tenure and promotion process here. And it basically goes through multiple levels, but it makes its way ultimately to the provost's office. And I'm the one who sort of handles the triaging of it in this office. One advice for people walking in the door: hit the ground running. You need to go ahead and get started. A lot of people think, just take a little time to get settled in and whatever. No, you want to get started immediately, set an agenda for yourself, and go ahead and get after it. I think this is going to be probably challenging this year because we're going to have such an ambiguous start to the semester with everything that's going on. But you can't let that derail you, and you really need to start focusing. Again, set an agenda for yourself, and then just get after it. And again, I think you're going to find a lot of resources here. The department will be a very important part of that resource. And so your chair has very much, well, everyone, but your chair especially has a vested interest in your success. And so you're going to see that they will be acting on your behalf to the extent possible. So listen, with that, again, I want to thank the panel. And for those of you who joined us today, very pleased to have you with us. And we're going to ask you if you're interested in the learning more about how to handle your finances. And I would suggest that even some of you may already be in some retirement systems or whatever, you still may want to listen in. And this is a broader than just about the retirement system, but it's just about managing your money. And so we have several people who'll be coming on at 11:30, and we'll get started. So I'm going to give you a bit of a break now. If you want to go grab a glass of water, go to the restroom, just stretch a bit, and then get back in front of teams. And then at the end of the financial literacy presentation, we will be done with new faculty orientation. So for those who will not be joining us for that, I want to say goodbye at this point. Again, we wish you the very best. I want to again thank the new faculty orientation team, who's we've done the best that we could under short circumstances, turning this into a virtual event. Our greatest regret remains that we're not able to meet you in person. And we usually have a grand closing reception, and so we had to forego that this year. But I said on Monday, maybe there'll be a makeup sometime. We're just going to have to wait and see how things shake out. So for now, everybody, goodbye. And again, if you just want to stay on board here and then come back at 11:30, we'll get started again. Again, to our panelists, everyone take care. Bye. And
I just want
Thank
to
you.
Thanks,
add on
everyone.
behalf of the panelists that we would like to thank all the administrators for doing a great job over the years, making sure that everything is running like a smooth oil machine. I also want to point out to the faculty members that USF is there to help you, the administration, and basically if it means that your research suffers because of a pandemic, or you need to have a leave of absence for maternity or paternity, related issues, we can work around it. So things can be changed. Your tenure clock can be temporarily stopped. We don't want to do that, but if it becomes necessary, keep in mind that USF wants you to be successful. So all these things are possibilities. So don't be stressed out if you're going through a particularly stressful period during your career. It can be something that we can work around. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.
Welcome to USF. Let us be helpful.